There's a report by the Centre for Social Justice, think tank I'm associated with
think
today.
Tank.
Yeah, thank you. And it talks about 6 million people being behind in their council tax.
Right.
Now, this is another illustration of the financial strain that a lot of communities are on. Some people don't pay their council tax for bad reasons, but there are a lot of people who just can't afford to pay the bills at the moment, whether it's their electricity bills or their council tax bills. There are multiple causes for why certain communities in Britain feel as unhappy as they do. And I think we're both agreed, we both can constantly condemn the violence, we're not excusing what is happening. But it should be said, and I think this is a big issue, we had a wake-up call in the 2011 riots that we didn't act upon. There are 10 to 15% of the British population, a demoralised, detached working class who feel completely remote from the rest of the country. Some are white working class, some are from Islamic communities. But they are absolutely dependent on welfare. A lot of their family structure has broken down. The sense of virtue has broken down. They never have a hope of really a proper integration in society. And we as a society, because we're rich enough, we can afford to pay the welfare bills. We can afford to police them. But they are basically not part of the rest of the country.
They're cut off.
In any way. And we don't really care enough, because we can police and we can manage them, to actually transform this situation.
No, I agree.
But one moment after another, maybe this, maybe in a week or so, the riots we're seeing at the moment will die down and we'll all go back to our lives. But the next time this erupts, in next year or two, it'll be bigger again.
It will be, and
when at some point will we ever face up to the fact that there is this section of society that we are parking, we are monitoring, and we're not living with?
There is no social mobility in this country, and the political class don't just ignore that lot. The left behind has been termed as during the Brexit campaign. They don't just ignore them, they sneer at them. They are revolted by them. They hate them. They would will them out of existence, and those people know that. They know that they are despised by the people who sit in the Palace of Westminster. And that, to me, is utterly, utterly heartbreaking.
But by giving them benefits as well, we're not really caring for them.
No.
We're really not.
There is no dignity in sitting at home, scraping by on a handout.
And we haven't fulfilled our responsibilities as neighbours by just paying them money.
And the problem we have as well is a lot of the things that have driven policy making in recent decades, that drive the agenda in NGOs, that drive the agenda on television with the editors of newspapers very often, which seems to be driving the agenda of successive governments, is the middle class concerns. It's the middle classes ruling for the middle classes. And you know what? They can say we must open our doors to lots of people from the developing world because they come from awful countries and we're a wealthy nation. Well, they can think that when they own a detached house, when they've got the latest car, when they can go on a foreign holiday and leave the cares of the world behind, when their children go to a good school and have hopes of brilliant careers. They can think that there's plenty to go around, but actually the resources aren't coming from them. It's a scrabble for resources, like you said, at the bottom end. And it's those communities who are then impacted when the migrant hotels are occupied.
It's actually worse than you say, actually, because actually lots of those middle-class people benefit from the cheap labour being imported. You know, their hotel rooms are cleaned by the clears, their homes are cleaned by the clears, they have people who do their manual labour around their house more cheaply. But actually, the people at the bottom, they don't have jobs because of these immigrants.
Their streets are tidy and nice, and when they meet people from other countries, they will be educated people who share our values. They will be people who have come over here to work as doctors, who have come over here to work at the BBC, and so they'll look at these people and say, they're just like us, they're wonderful. I love the fact that they can teach me about their cuisine and their home nation. Well, actually, what we have is a load of people here who have come over, never learnt the language at all, not for generations, have never thrown away their passports from back home, who sit at home and read the news from back at home, listen to radio stations, television channels, speak in their own language, and when they get on an aeroplane, they're going back home. They're an economic unit, but they're not a member of our society. And this is why we have these problems. And you know what? I am afraid that I can't see any indication that anybody in the Labour Party gets this at all. In fact, they're continuing to do what caused this in the first place by pointing their fingers at the working classes and saying it's somehow their fault.
And you know whose fault it is? It's yours. Alex.
Of course it's
and mine.
We're disseminating all this hatred.
Because by drawing attention to the problem, apparently that's worse than the problem itself.
Exactly, drawing attention to it.
Talking about mass immigration, talking about the failure to integrate is worse than the mass immigration and the failure to integrate.
I want to talk about that, actually, because, you know, I found myself for the very first time yesterday feeling like every word I heard I had to sort of quietly self-edit. Yeah. There was something funny. I've got a knot in my stomach at the moment of what can I say and how far can I, you know, talk what I see to be the truth. Both because I don't want suddenly clips to be circulated online that will inflame the situation. I am a sensible, moral person, and the last thing I want are saying words that are going to encourage people to go out with that righteous indignation. But also because it seems to me the approach of this government is information control. It is narrative control. It is shutting people up instead of addressing the problem. And when I see a number of people, left-wingers, and the sorts of things they're writing online, they would use this as an excuse to basically lock people like you and I up.
It's not just government, I'm sure you agree. I don't know if you saw a clip on Sunday from the BBC. There was Kevin Hurley, the former police inspector, superintendent. He was just talking about, he said, well, we have to see these riots in the context of other events that have happened. It's not just Southport. He mentioned Leeds and he mentioned the stabbing of the soldier.
Oh, the police officer. And they've got to go.
And they immediately said, no, you can't talk about that. That's conflating situations. He said, you can't understand these without understanding the why, and they stopped him. They cut him off and they said, no, you're making the problem worse now. So when people watch a mainstream broadcaster do that, what happens? People think, BBC's not allowing conversation, it's not letting the truth. And what they go off with, then they go to the wilder extremes of the internet, where they are fed very damaging and incendiary information. So it really is important. It sounds like we're being very blowing our smoke up our own whatevers at the moment. But Talk and other platforms where conversation really flows freely, where you don't feel you have to constantly self-censor, is incredibly important.
I mean, actually, the Labour Party would do a lot of good by sitting down and listening to Talk and hearing when people call in and discuss their problems, because our audience are not knuckle-dragging Neanderthals. They're intelligent, they're astute, they're kind-hearted, they're good people.
And anxious.
And very scared. And, well, I think we all have much reason to be scared at the moment.